What's up, y'all? It's Will here at Schedulefly. The story continues with the spring of 2009 and the first and only trade show that Schedulefly has ever attended. And we will never attend another. Lesson learned on this one. So to give you a little context here, this is a couple months. Well, this is right after we had done the California Pizza Kitchen trip. And, again, we had all been with a previous business together, and trade shows were an important part of that business. They worked for that business at that time. And I was convinced, well, we've got to go to the National Restaurant Association trade show. There's tens of thousands of restaurant people coming to this thing. There's thousands of vendors. It's a big deal. We're going to go up there and show the world Schedulefly. So I convinced Wes we need to go up there. And of course, we didn't have a booth. We had nothing. So we have to have these, brochures made, and we have to have a booth designed and made, and the whole works. You reserve a booth in the technology area, and you're one of now, hundreds of technology companies alone. Again, thousands of different vendors. So many lessons came from this. But we were in like 10 grand, 12 grand, whatever it was, when you add in hotel rooms and flights and booth rental and paying the union worker $300 to plug your laptop in, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was just insane how much money we put into this thing. But, I'm optimistic. I'm convinced. I'm like, man, that's fine, because, there's tens of thousands of restaurant people there, and they're all going to see Schedulefly, and we're going to get all these people that are customers and, paying us $30 or $40 a month. We'll make that up easily, and then some. Wrong. I don't think we got a single customer from this thing. We got a partnership, and then I got excited about that, and that didn't result in anything either. I'll tell that story later. There's so many stories that came from this, but the lesson I learned, and I think Wes was way ahead of me on a lot of this stuff. He understood this, and I think I had to talk him into stuff, and I think he was kind enough to go along and maybe had some optimism that maybe possibly this was work, but his instincts are really good for stuff like this. And the fact of the matter was, we never should have gone. It took me, that amount of time of planning and the amount of money we spent to really understand that. But here's the thing, the way I look at things now, this is something I look at personally and professionally. Okay, so let's say it was $12,000 to go to this thing, and a lot of time to plan, to design the booth, all that stuff. So if you take the number of hours it took to get ready for this thing, the number of hours we were there away from our families, and you add all that, and then you add the money we spent, the 12 grand. If you took those same hours and that same money, is this the best way to spend it? Now, I probably would have even known then, no. I don't know if I would have known then, but I think I would have been not 100% sure that going to that show was. But it was what you did, right? It's why so many companies go. You got to go to the National Restaurant Association show. Everybody goes to that show. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? So if you took that 12 grand and you took those hours and you stacked them up and said, you can use these for the trade show or for anything else you want, well, we would have probably just, looking back now, what have we done? We saved the money. We don't spend the 12 grand, and we find more creative ways to spend those hours. They get a better return anyway. I mean, I'll talk more about this soon, but this led into all the content we produce, our books and videos and podcasts and all that stuff. So that's just time and no money. But so we go to this thing. I think it was like Thursday to Sunday or whatever. It's just a long few days. We're buried in the back of this exhibit hall in the technology section. We're a normal booth, meaning that we're not a larger booth than normal. We're not on an end cap. We're not. There's nothing special. We're like the third of 12 booths in this long row on one side of the row, right? And there's all these other companies there, and there's a company across from us. And of course, at the time, their technology was real advanced. Now it would be, it's irrelevant, but it was like some tabletop hardware where you could order food from your table. And the guy that was there was, let's say, not necessarily the most conversational, friendly guy. I think he had a little bit of an ego. I had a lot of industry connections, and those industry connections included a consultant. And I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to describe him because I suspect he's probably still around, and he's very easy to remember once you describe him. But well, needless to say, Wes and I will never forget what this guy looks like. And this guy would bring around large groups of people, 8, 10, 12 people, and he'd bring them over to this booth across from us. And they would all crowd around in a big semicircle and listen to this not so friendly guy and his arrogantly talk about how his technology is changing the restaurant world. And, you'd be a fool not to have it, that kind of messaging. And they would crowd up the whole aisle. So what do people that are wandering around do when they see our aisle? They're like, I ain't going down that aisle. It's a big crowd down there. I can't even walk through it. So in other words, it would keep people from even being able to get to our booth, which was annoying enough as it was. And it happened over and over the course of a few days. In addition to the fact that every time this consultant would bring this group over there, he would then say, okay, well, now we're going to go a couple aisles over and we're going to go see Hot Schedules. And of course, that was our competitor, right? I mean, at the time, it was like us and them. And they were, they were built to serve chains. I think they came from like Outback, so they already served Outback, and they had all these industry connections. And here we are, it's just Tyler and Wes and I at the time. And obviously, it was just grating. I mean, the whole scene was just, it was annoying. It was frustrating. It was maddening. It was rude. He knew darn sure that we were right there and that we were, a competitor. And he's very loudly bringing up, our competitor's name, very loudly taking people over there. It was clearly pretty deliberate. Wouldn't even acknowledge us, wouldn't even say hello to us, nothing like that. So we're just like, whatever, this guy's just a jerk. And this happens on and on for, the whole time we're there. We have our laptop, we have our, brochures, our booth that we had. It's just Wes and I. We're trying to be friendly. We're trying to be authentic. We're trying to be nice. We're trying to show people Schedulefly. And we're not doing anything special. And it was just, if you're going to a trade show, you got to be very memorable, or what is the point? I mean, we were noise. We were just noise. There's no signal coming from us. It was just noise, and everybody else there is noise. It's set for the boost that you're looking for when you go because you're trying to solve a problem, right? Okay, we're going to solve this specific problem. And nowadays, do you really even need to go to a trade show? I mean, people still go. And of course, I don't know after COVID what will happen with these things, but what's the point? I mean, you used to have to go because that's where you could go to learn about different companies that were doing what you needed help with before the web, before people had websites. I mean, now you just sit down and you go, all right, well, look at these companies and let's check them all out and figure out which one's the best. Well, either way, nobody's coming to that trade show in 2009 aggressively trying to solve their scheduling and communication problem. They just weren't. So unless you're there to solve somebody's problem, explicit problem, you're not going to just forget it. I mean, there's thousands of vendors. Why would they remember you? Why would they, just not worth it. So we learned so many things from that. I'll tell about the partnership that we got out of that. That was also a failure. I'll talk about that in another story or another episode of this. But the icing on the cake of this thing, Wes and I are there a few days. It's exhausting. We're gone from our families. We spent all this money. We knew we were getting business cards, but it meant nothing. And then the last day, Wes was got an early flight. I was going to take down the booth. My flight was a little bit later. And I'm starting to take down the booth early that Sunday morning. And I get a stomach virus. And I got a bad stomach virus. And it wasn't fun taking down that booth and getting it down in time to just get to the airport in time in a cab that gets delayed and has to stop because I got a stomach virus. And, it was a real giant mess. And then I get on a plane and I'm sick as can be. And we have little kids. So when I get home, my wife doesn't want me to come home and get everybody else sick. So I get a hotel near the airport in Charlotte and spend the night there, alone and sick and dejected and frustrated and kicking myself that we had spent all this money and all this time for literally nothing. And hard, expensive lesson, but lesson well learned. We've never been to another trade show, never thought about going to another trade show, never will go to another trade show. We've saved goodness knows how much money. I mean, 10, 12 grand times 14 years now. Do the math. It's 6 figures. Lots of time. And we've learned, before you spend on anything like that, take that same amount of money. If you could do something different with it, what would you do? You got to ask that question. And is what you're doing unique and memorable and different? Because if not, keep the money, save it. It's not worth it. I was going to say our friend. He's certainly not our friend, but our consultant makes his way into this story again, in sort of a Darth Vader from Empire Strikes Back scene that we'll cover later. But that's it. There's our one trade show story for Schedulefly, and lots of lessons from that. And thank goodness that I don't know whether they're having that trade show this year or not. I doubt it. I don't know if they'll have it the next year or the one after that or the one after that, but we will never, ever be at that one again. So, we narrowed that down. Those don't work for us. So again, narrowing down what doesn't work is a big early part of a startup. And while it sucked at the time, it's worth it for the story because Wes and I have been laughing about it for, since 2009. All right, y'all, thanks for listening. More coming soon. See you.